Welcome to all of you. We are so excited about tonight's presentation. Hopefully you got your pad and pencil or pen ready to take notes. There's a lot of great information that we're going to be sharing. My name is Cora Fullmore, and I am the president of the Mortgage and Credit Center and also the creator of Diversified Resource Network and online training site. We are so excited about partnering with NFCC and the Faith-Based Alliance in bringing this information. It's great information, so hold tight, be ready to start taking notes. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over. Oh, let me just say, I'm excited about our speaker. This is great information. So go ahead, get your paper and pen and everything ready so you can be taking some notes. I'll turn it over to Mr. Herman Palmer. Herman?
Thank you, Cora. Appreciate you, and good afternoon. Welcome to today's presentation on student loan debt management. This is part of the National Foundation for Credit Counseling's Faith-Based Alliance Economic Empowerment Series. Our partners in this endeavor include Mount Zion Baptist Church of Philadelphia, Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church of Philadelphia, Freddie Mac, and of course, Diversified Resource Network. I want to start by thanking our planning committee, our presenter, our sponsors, Wells Fargo, Freddie Mac, and TD Bank, and certainly you, our listening audience. As you've heard, I'm Herman Palmer. I'm the Vice President of Outreach and Inclusion for the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, or as we call it, the NFCC. And our mission is to empower consumers to address their financial challenges and to take charge of their futures. I'm excited about today's presentation because I think it's a very timely subject, student loan debt management. A lot of us have young ones, or we ourselves might be preparing for college, and people pursuing education are doing so in the hope of securing better employment, better opportunities later on in life. But as we know, this undertaking is not free. There is a cost involved, and that's okay as long as we take the time to make informed choices that lead to better repayment options, resulting in better financial outcomes. Now, before we begin, I want to review some of our ground rules. This, as I always say, is a safe space that is provided for all in attendance to get access to the information they need to achieve better outcomes. What that means is there is no judgment here. Ask any question you have. Chances are, if you thought of it, several other people have thought of it, and everybody's like reluctant to ask. You tuned in for a reason. Help us help you get the answers that you're looking for. There are no dumb questions. There will be a brief survey sent out to you later on after this presentation. For those who we can get your email, please fill it out. We're using that to help refine and improve our overall program. And with that, having said all that, it is time for me to introduce my colleague and friend, Barry Coleman. Give you a little bit about the magnificence of Barry. Barry is Vice President of the Counseling and Education Programs at the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. He and his team are responsible for the development and implementation of financial counseling and education programs that NFCC members deliver to consumers. He has more than 17 years of experience in the credit counseling industry and previously held management positions in training, regulatory compliance, and financial counseling. Barry is a retired Command Chief Master Sergeant, having served 32 years in the United States Air Force and the Virginia Air National Guard. Barry, thank you for your service. He holds a BA in Organizational Management from Ashford University and an MBA from Ohio University. Barry, please come forward and share your insight and information with our audience.
Well, thank you, Herman, for that introduction, and good evening to all of you, and welcome to tonight's webinar entitled Understanding Student Loans and Repayment. As Herman mentioned, I'm Barry Coleman, and I'm the Vice President of Program Management and Education at the NFCC, which is the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, for those of you that may not know. So the subject of student loans and student debt is one that is on the mind of many in our country. And just to give you a few statistics here, as of February 2023, there was a total of $1.7 trillion owed in student loan debt in the United States. And this includes federal as well as private student loans, the vast majority being federal student loans. The average borrower owes just shy of $29,000. 92% of all student debt is held by the federal government in the way of federal student loans. And of course, the remaining is private student loans, making up a small percentage. 55% of students from public four-year institutions have student loans, and 57% of students from private nonprofit four-year institutions also took on student loans to pay for their education. As many of you may know, there's currently a broad forbearance program in place from the federal government for federal student loans. And this has been in place for about 3 years now, since the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic. So at this particular time, for federal student loans, payments are not due for those that are participating in that forbearance program, which was an automatic enrollment. So you had to opt out of that forbearance if you didn't want to take advantage of it. And there are a few people that did because they wanted to pay off their loans and get it done with. But there are many that are still in forbearance. During this forbearance period, no interest is accruing at all on all of those federal student loans. However, the forbearance is just a temporary solution. It's not permanent at all. And in the coming months, borrowers will once again have to start making payments on their federal student loans if they accepted that forbearance. Additionally, and I should add this, is that there are a few pending legal challenges to the Biden administration's forgiveness program. Some of you may know that the Biden administration has proposed forgiving student loan debt, $10,000 for certain borrowers and up to $20,000 for those that were Pell Grant recipients and have student loans. But those proposals are hung up right now. They'll be in front of the Supreme Court. So we don't know what's going to happen with that. You know, it may be that forgiveness will be granted after all, or it may be that it won't happen. And even if it does, it will not absolve those with federal student loans of all of their student loan debt payment. So payments will begin sometime in the very near future. So it's important that students and families start preparing for that. And we'll talk a little bit more about the whole preparation to repay here later in the presentation. But today we're going to delve into the issue of student loans, not only from the standpoint of addressing this debt if students already have it, but also looking at some ways to avoid or lessen the reliance on student loans to pay for college.
So this is us. This is the committee that has led the organization of this. So I don't know if you want to speak to this, Barry, but that's me, that's Pastor Cedric Jones, Reverend Kevin Murphy, LaTanya Gonzalez, and the amazing Cora Fulmer.
Yes, and we thank you all for your leadership in forming this faith-based alliance. And again, this faith-based alliance is sponsoring this webinar today. In addition to other webinars that we have planned, and we'll share the full schedule with you at the conclusion of this presentation. And this is me when I'm all dressed up. Again, I'm glad to be here doing this for you today. The subject of student loans is something that's near and dear to my heart, and I have some personal stories as it relates to student loans that I will share with you. as we progress along. But again, glad to be with you here today.
Barry, we have a question.
Sure.
What if the legal battles continue through July? Do they extend the forbearance?
Yeah, that is a great question, and I think it's one that has not been fully addressed by the administration, but I know it's something that's in the back of their minds. I have seen certain community groups and others suggest that the Biden administration should extend that forbearance. The Biden administration has said that payments will resume after the legal challenges, at least 2 months after the legal challenges are resolved. But depending on the timing of those things, they may decide to do something else. But at this point, it's unclear. But I think at the very least, we should have it until, or those that have student loans should have until those legal challenges are resolved. But very good question. There's a lot of uncertainty out here right now. And those legal challenges, I think, just complicate it even more. So this is our agenda for the day. I realize that the subject of student loans can be very complicated for many. So our goal today is really just to provide some basic understanding of student loans and to review some options and best practices related to the repayment of student loans. And as I mentioned, we'll also discuss options for paying for college besides student loans. And yes, there are other options. So, families that are preparing to send their children to school, there are some options we'll discuss. So you don't necessarily have to sort of resign yourself to, I'm going to have to take out loans. There are other ways to pay for college, and we'll talk about all of those. Also, our agenda today will begin with an overview of the NFCC for those of you that may not be fully aware of our organization and our mission. And we'll also discuss the history of student loans, again, the alternatives to using student loans to fund higher education, and then types of student loans and repayment plans, and what to do if you find yourself with delinquent or defaulted student loans. Okay. All right. So the NFCC is the largest and longest serving nonprofit in the United States that's dedicated to financial and credit education. We are a membership organization with approximately 50 members that are located across the country, operating in every state and in Puerto Rico. The NFCC develops education and counseling programs that our member agencies deliver. And we also manage the counselor certification programs that our member agencies must complete before serving consumers. We are also an advocate for our members, seeking support from private and governmental institutions that help us to further our work in promoting financial education across our nation, which is a very important subject that we care a lot about. Okay, before we delve into the federal student loan program, let's take a brief step back and look at the history of student loans in general. So prior to the 1950s, the financial landscape of higher education was a bit different than what we're seeing today. First of all, there were fewer students, and as a result, there were fewer with student loan debt. College was considered, of course, less expensive back in the 50s than it is today, relative to the amount of money that people make. Access to college was typically limited by a student and their family's available finances. But in the late 50s, the National Defense Education Act was signed by President Eisenhower. And it was intended to improve and strengthen the U.S. school system, 12 through K, by encouraging students to continue education beyond high school to help us keep pace with technological advances in the Soviet Union at that time. The act provided some scholarships and loans to students in higher education, especially those that were preparing to become teachers in the subjects of mathematics, science, engineering, and modern foreign languages. So we were really trying to better position the United States to educate its population so that we could keep pace with the Soviet Union. So this was really the beginning of federal student aid. This would later expand, which increased access to college. Some of the later reforms would refine in ways in which the federal government provided assistance to students who did not have the financial means to pay for college. Let me stress that if you're considering borrowing for higher education today, you want to maximize other types of aid first before considering student loans. And this will save you thousands of dollars and help avoid the student debt burden that so many are facing in our country today. So we're going to spend some time talking about those available options. And essentially, there are about five main options you see depicted on the slide here. There are scholarships, grants, both private, federal, and state grants for higher education. There are work-study jobs, military, VA, or employer educational assistance, as well as personal income savings and 529 college savings plan. Now, we realize that some of you that are participating in today's webinar may already have existing student loans that were taken out to finance college expenses, and we'll get into that discussion of current loan repayment strategies in a moment. But we thought it would be wise for those to share with those that are planning for college, either for yourself or a family member, looking at some of the other alternatives to paying for college before considering loans. And again, that way you can avoid taking on too much student loan debt. Now, it's important to note that student loans use future earnings as collateral. So the idea is that you finance your education now with the hope that in the future you're able to gain employment as a result of the education that you took out the loans for, and then that income will help to pay the loans back. It's important that borrowers know that student loans, though, cannot be discharged in bankruptcy in most cases. There are some exceptions to that. So if student loans are taken out, they must be repaid. And I believe that emphasizing these points early in the planning process for those that are planning to go to college or have family members that are planning to go to college will encourage students and families to seek all other alternatives to loans first and work to borrow as little as possible as it relates to your future potential earnings. That way, you won't have to worry about spending, your income after you go into the job market, for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You can take those earnings and, start a family, buy a home, those other things that are so important for most of us. Now, we're going to look at each of these types of alternatives in a little more detail, and I'm going to share some key points about these 5 options. Again, scholarships. Many nonprofits and private organizations offer scholarships to help pay for college or career school. Now, this is free money, and it's often based on things such as academic merit, So if you have a child or you're excelling in school, in some cases, you're able to gain scholarships based on your performance in high school. So it's important that students study when they're in high school and work to achieve really good grades, because this can help you down the road. Also, if you have a particular talent, music is a good example. I have known people that have gotten music scholarships because they were very talented in playing instruments or their vocal abilities and singing and that type of thing. There could be scholarships that are based on other interests as well, or other particular areas of study. And this can make a real difference in helping you manage your educational expenses. Now, there are many. Go ahead, Herman.
Yeah, so here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So often we discount our interests or what we do or what we have a passion for. So, for example, if you have a daughter and you're a person of color and that daughter is good in math or science, trust and believe there's a scholarship out there. Yes. You don't even have to be a person of color. If you're female and you have an interest in math and science, absolutely take advantage and go out there. There's a scholarship for you somewhere. The other thing, my son, my daughter, they were into martial arts. Believe it or not, there's scholarships for people who are interested in martial arts. There are scholarships for people who are left-handed. There are scholarships for people who are interested in doing athletics, but not necessarily representing the school as a part of the school team. They could be a part of the club team. Things like rugby. All these things, these hobbies, people discount, not realizing they're walking away from money that's available on the table. The other thing is, you need to make sure your child has skin in the game. By that, I mean, if I have to put in work and effort to get some resources, I'm going to look at the opportunity that is my education a little differently, because I helped to get that money. And I'm not just going to willy-nilly be hanging out when I know I remember how hard I worked to get that money to begin with. So part of their job, especially in their sophomore and junior year, is doing research to help them find scholarships, because they are out there. You just got to do the due diligence to find them.
Yes, those are great points, Herman. And yeah, I actually have a friend whose daughter got a scholarship to be on the bowling team at her college because she's a really good bowler. So there are a wide variety of scholarships out there. And yes, research is so important. Thankfully today, there are many online resources that are available to help search for scholarships. Many fraternities and sororities and professional organizations offer scholarships. Herman mentioned involving your kids in that process. I wholeheartedly agree with that, especially if they've got a summer coming up and they're a year out from college. Give them a project to research scholarships and bring that information back and compile that information. There's just a lot of money out there that goes unclaimed every single year. So
I say give them a project and give them a target. Give them a specific amount they have to raise on their own to contribute to their education. I don't care if it's book money, meal money, something.
I love that. I really do. Local financial institutions, credit unions and banks, they have scholarships. Community groups. My church at a minimum gives $5,000 scholarships to anyone that's going to college when they graduate, just on a regular basis every single year. So, it's important to do that research. It's important to tap those community groups, those financial institutions, take advantage of what's out there. Another thing I'll add is that oftentimes when there are large college fairs, we have a big one here where I live in the convention center. It's sponsored by one of the sororities, and typically during these college fairs, they're admitting people and giving them scholarships right on the spot. They just have to bring in their transcripts and that type of thing. And so much money gets awarded during those things. And typically they announce whenever they're awarded a scholarship, they'll make a big announcement in the convention center. So take advantage of those college fairs, those big college fairs when they come through where you live.
Here's another thing. When you're talking about grants and scholarships, a lot of times you got to write an essay for that, and you got to interview. So let's start with the end in mind. If you know your child's going to have to write an essay, please review it. Don't let them just send it without having it be reviewed by you. The other thing is, if you know you're going to look for a scholarship or a grant and there's going to be an interview, practice. Practice makes better. I'm not going to say perfect, but it makes it better. Little things like eye contact, how to do a handshake, how to dress, how to take control of the interview and lead the interviewer. Little things like that add up to big things. The other thing about college fairs, it's okay to go to multiple, have safety schools, because if you don't get into your first choice, they may be giving you more money and that might dictate where you go.
Yes.
So, and when you think about a major, I can't tell you how many of my schoolmates were going to be pre-med that aren't doctors today. So here's what I will tell you. There are certain scholarships and grants that are available based upon what you study. If you even have a remote interest in it, and there's many times that I'm interested in that, because there's 7 days in a week. Tuesday, I'm pre-med. Thursday, I'm involved in dentistry. Friday, I'm a business person. Thursday, I'm in economics. Don't shut off any opportunity that's available to you.
Yep, absolutely. Another thing to consider, there are scholarships for Army, Air Force, and Navy ROTC, which is the Reserve Officer Training Program. And they will award those scholarships. My son actually got offered one for Central Michigan University. We didn't accept it because it was at the beginning of the pandemic, and we didn't really want him that far away from home. But we did our research. We went and visited the school. We made it a point to go by and talk to the head of the ROTC there at Central Michigan, and the gentleman assured me that if my son was eligible, all he needed to do was to make Eastern Michigan his first choice, and he lived up to his promise. He called me several months later to offer him a scholarship, but at that time, we had decided that he would go to another school. So if you're persistent and you do your research, there's money out there to be had. There are so many different options. Now, besides scholarships, there are also grants. And as I mentioned, grants can be from private organizations. They can be federal grants like Pell Grants, which are need-based. And many states also have state educational grants as well. This is also free money, doesn't have to be repaid. And so I encourage those that are looking to go to college or have family members that are looking to go to college, research the grant opportunities that may be available. There are grant programs for those that are going to teach. If they agree to teach at least 5 years in certain low-income schools, then if they take out a student loan and they fulfill those 5 years, that loan is converted to a grant. So that's another option for those that may be interested in teaching and are willing to teach in low-income schools. Again, it's important. Every state is different when it comes to grants and assistance, so it's important to research what your own state has to offer. Another type of alternative to student loans is work-study jobs. Now, there is a federal work-study program that allows students to earn money to pay for college by working part-time, typically at the school. It's administered by the participating schools. With the federal work-study programs, there has to be a financial need for the student to be eligible for these formal work-study programs. And that's determined by information in the FAFSA, which is a free application for federal student assistance, and we'll get into the details of the FAFSA further in this presentation. So federal work study is need-based, but I also wanted to mention that many colleges also have job opportunities outside of the official work study programs, and students can take advantage of those. You know, it's okay to work their way through college if they can handle, you know, working a few hours a week part-time and handling their studies. There are typically all sorts of job opportunities there on most college campuses. So something else, you know, to consider.
Barry, we got a question.
Yes.
Where can a high school student get these resources? From a high school guidance counselor? I would think yes.
Yes, a high school guidance counselor is a good resource. If they're doing their jobs, then they should have a wealth of information that they can provide to the students at your school. And they typically will also help with the application process and applying for schools, but they'll also be able to provide information about, you know, how to pay for college. So yes, that is a good source.
I would also suggest, as you narrow your focus for schools that your child or you are interested in, contact the financial aid office at that school. The university itself or the college might have some grants available that a high school guidance counselor might not be aware of. And then there's always the internet.
Yep, great point. Great point. All right, so moving on, military, VA, or employer assistance, educational assistance. So the U.S. military offers a variety of educational assistance programs to help pay for college. I'm proud to say that I used military education benefits to fund both my bachelor's degree and my MBA and saved thousands of dollars because of that. The current post 9/11 GI Bill was established in September 2001. It not only pays for tuitions and books, but it also provides a monthly housing allowance for those that are enrolled in college. So if your family member is a veteran and they served, you know, after 9/11, then they should be eligible for that post 9/11 GI Bill, and the Veterans Administration can help them through the process of applying for those. And get this, with the post 9/11 GI Bill, for service members who don't personally use their benefits or use all of their benefits, you can transfer that post 9/11 GI Bill benefits to eligible family members, and that would be, you know, your children or your spouse. So that is an option for many. That's something that I was able to personally do for my son as well. I didn't use all of my benefits. I had some left, and he was able to take advantage of some of that. I mentioned ROTC scholarships and programs for Army, Air Force, and Navy. These are competitive scholarships, and again, they pay for tuition and also provide a monthly stipend for those that are enrolled in college and participating in ROTC. My son took advantage of that also until he had a food allergy that disqualified him, unfortunately. But it was another option that he pursued, and you know, it can provide some money to pay for school. The good thing about ROTC is that upon graduation, cadets earn commission as officers in the military reserve. So that's some income and a secondary career for those that are enrolled. Now, I know the military is not for everyone, but for some it could be an option. Additionally, some private employers also offer educational benefits. So if you're working and considering going to school, be sure to ask your employers or prospective employers, if you're interviewing for jobs, if they have, do they offer educational assistance as a benefit? And then personal savings, and we should not discount personal savings. It's never too early to start saving for college. Most, if not all, states have state-sponsored 529 college saving plans that allow parents and even grandparents to save money for college for their children or grandchildren. And there are tax benefits that come with those 529 benefits. They can avoid paying state taxes on the amount that's saved. These plan offerings vary widely by state, so it's important for parents to research what their state has to offer. And as Herman said again, it's wise for parents to encourage their children to be part of the process. And this includes putting earnings from part-time jobs or summer jobs into savings for college. This is also something that my son did. My wife was really the key driving factor there in encouraging him to save. He had automatic savings going into an account for college, and that helped defray the cost quite a bit. So again, involve your children in the process, ensure that they have some skin in the game, and I believe that they'll appreciate it more if they're involved in saving and researching to help make their dream come true. One thing that you'll hear, and this is a common theme that you're going to hear from us throughout this presentation, is that, finding options take research and planning. So again, if you or your family member are considering college in the next year or so, our suggestion would be to begin planning now if you haven't already done so. So those are the student loan alternatives. We wanted to be sure to spend some time on that because student loans aren't the only answer. There are other ways to pay for college. One thing I didn't mention too is an option as well. Community colleges. I think community colleges are a great value. It's a good way for students to earn 2 years of college at a vastly reduced rate when it comes to tuition. Now, I know that many that graduate, they want to be independent. They want to move away and go to college away, and I understand that. But if that's not an option, after researching all sorts of ways to pay for college, community college might be the way to go. Get those 2 years under your belt at a reduced cost, and then transfer to a 4-year college later on.
There's another advantage to community colleges too, because once you successfully graduate from a community college, the admission standards for a transfer, particularly from some community college, aren't as steep or stiff. So you have an easier time of transferring into your college or university of choice, your first choice, and you've had savings to boot. So
yep, absolutely.
And then the savings that you had in going to community college, you might take advantage of and use those saved resources for grad school later on.
Absolutely. Good tips, Herman. All right. So here's, as a recap, this is suggested order of priority when it comes to considering how to pay for college. Maximize all scholarships, grants, and tuition assistance. This should be at the top of the list because you're not required to pay these back. It's considered free money. It typically comes with eligibility and other conditions, but this is free money. You don't have to pay it back. Work study next. This is assistance for paying for college in exchange for work, typically within the college community. Again, there's financial need for official federal work study programs based on information that's provided in the FAFSA. And again, some students can work on and off campus outside of a formal work study program. They don't require financial aid, just a willingness to work, and are open to everyone. Personal savings accumulated over time. This could include gifts from family and friends and money saved through working. Could also include the 529 college investment accounts, which offer tax benefits in addition to paying for tuition. There are some 529 plans that are prepaid tuition plans, and these allow you to prepay all or part of the cost of an in-state college education, with today's dollars at today's price. So if someone, if a family buys a prepaid tuition plan, they're paying on it until the child reaches college age. They're saving quite a bit because that tuition is prepaid again at today's cost, and that could be a way to avoid inflation because college costs are rising and they continue to rise, and they outpace the inflation that we're hearing about today. They outpace that 9% or so inflation. There's also a private college 529 plan, which is a separate prepaid plan for private colleges, and that's sponsored by more than 250 private colleges. And again, these plans vary widely, so we suggest talking to someone in your financial aid office. There's also a website. It's called savingforcollege.com. And there's an intro to 529 plans, and it features a map, and you just click on your state and it shows you the 529 plans that are in that state. And again, that's savingforcollege.com, and look for intro to 529s. At the bottom of the priority list, you'll notice our student loans. Again, they have to be paid back. Typically, federal student loans provide more options and options for repayment. And in some case, there are various forgiveness programs that we'll talk about. Private student loans are less flexible when it comes to repayment. Those that use private loans do so to cover costs typically that can't be paid with other types of aid. But typically, in order of priority, it's federal loans, and then it's private loans. Okay, so that's the general priority for funding college. All right, I mentioned the FAFSA, so let's talk a bit about that. In order to be eligible for many types of federal financial aid, families must complete the FAFSA, which is a free application for federal student aid. It's a form that is completed by current and prospective college students in the U.S. to determine eligibility for federal student aid. This is the one way that families can determine what federal student aid they are eligible for, the FAFSA. Typically, you can't get any federal student aid unless you first complete the FAFSA. Now, there are deadlines for completion of the FAFSA in order to be eligible for federal student aid. We recommend that you consult with the financial aid office of the colleges where you've applied for specific details. The best way to complete the FAFSA, and you see a picture here of that online screen, is the online application. 99% of all FAFSA forms are completed using this particular website. There is also a PDF version of the FAFSA form that's available that can be found at studentaid.gov. It has to be either filled out by hand or typed on a PDF, printed and mailed. There aren't many advantages, in my opinion, to doing that printed and mailed form. It would be wise, I believe, to complete the process online because the process is optimized for online submission. It's a lot easier to do it online, and it allows you to pull in income information from your federal tax returns directly from the IRS's system. So you don't have to send all of that information with the paper form. Additionally, the Department of Education is getting ready to release a new streamlined version of the FAFSA later this year. There's a draft out there now that's available for public comment. Congress passed the FAFSA Simplification Act in 2020, and they're at the stage now where they're getting public comment on the proposed changes to the FAFSA. The whole intent is to reduce the number of questions on the application and make the Pell Grants and other financial aid more accessible. So kudos to the federal government for trying to simplify that process. The new application is scheduled to roll out for the 2024-2025 school year on December 1st of this year. So those of you that are looking to enter college in the 2024-2025 school year or have family members that will be enrolling in college during that period, look for that new FAFSA that's going to be released December 1st of this year. It from what I understand, is going to be a lot simpler.
And Barry, we have a question from the attendees.
Sure.
What do blind or deaf students need to do to complete the FAFSA form?
Yeah, so my recommendation there would be to reach out to federal student aid to see what assistance they will provide in helping to complete that. You know, I know the government is big on accessibility, and typically they work to make sure that there's equal access to these types of opportunities. So I would say the first stop would be studentaid.gov, and they should provide some resources there that would help. Good question. Okay, I am providing here, this is the web address where the FAFSA can be completed today, as well as a address where you can find additional instructions on completion of the FAFSA, including a video that explains the process, which is very helpful. And the video, by the way, does have closed captions if there's someone that's hearing impaired, that explains that process. It's a great little video, short, maybe about 7 minutes, but it gives a great high-level overview of the process, and then from there you can drill down into the various steps that you have to take. We encourage all aspiring students, as well as their families, to fill out the FAFSA. Completing the FAFSA doesn't obligate you to take in any federal student aid, but instead is the tool that colleges use to determine eligibility to the various types of aid that may be available. It's also, yep, go ahead.
As it relates to the FAFSA, having had 2 children go to college and 1 to grad school, I can share with you, it is critically important that you be very organized. So as soon as you complete your FAFSA, put it in a file with your income tax so that you know where to go the next year, because you're going to have to refer to that same information, and you want it to be accurate. You don't want to come up, oh, I had an income of $40,000 one year, and then the next year they ask you how much did you make last year? Oh, I made 24. No, that's not going to work. So you want to be very organized, everything together so that you know where to go. Trust me, it's going to make it a lot less painful, even with this more streamlined FAFSA application document.
Yep, that is so true. All right, so again, there are instructions here for completing the FAFSA. You see the link there, and then also the link to the actual online FAFSA form. For additional assistance, please contact the financial aid office at the college where the student is attending or considering attending. Okay. Now that we've talked about alternatives to student loans and we talked about the FAFSA, let's talk a bit about federal student loan types. There are 2 main types. Private student loans and federal student loans. And we believe it's important to understand the difference between the 2. So private student loans are loans for educational purposes that are from private banks and other financial institutions. Typically, the rate and the terms are set by each bank and based on credit criteria of those applying. They typically require a cosigner for private student loans. Private student loans typically are used to cover the cost of attendance that's not covered by other federal student aid. So if the cost is really, you're considering a really expensive school, federal student aid may not cover it all. And so that's often when students and families turn to private student loans to help make up the difference. Federal student loans, on the other hand, are education loans that are made directly by the federal government. About 90% of all student loans now are direct student loans from the federal government. The rates and terms are set by U.S. Congress. So there's standard rates and terms that are set across the board. You can find that information at studentaid.gov, as opposed to private student loans where you've got to talk to each individual bank and get them to pull your credit to determine what the terms and conditions are of the loan. There are no standard across the board for private student loans. They're as different as the lenders are different. But with federal student loans, there's a little more standardization because it's set by the U.S. government. The amount and type of federal loan is partially, at least, based on financial need. Federal student loans are generally less expensive than private student loans. And when I say less expensive, I mean the interest rates, as well as the monthly payments, because typically federal student loans, you can spread the payments out over a longer period of time than with private student loans. Of course, the longer you spread a loan out, the more you're paying in interest over the term of the loan, but it could help to make it a little more affordable when it comes to monthly payments. It's something that you should consider and compare. Always consider federal student loans first before applying for private student loans. That would be our typical advice that we provide. Okay, federal student loan eligibility. There are some eligibility requirements in order for someone to receive a federal student loan. First of all, you have to demonstrate some level of financial need. This is what certain federal student loans requires financial need, and that's determined from the information that you include in the FAFSA application process. Normally, you have to either be a U.S. citizen or an eligible non-citizen. An eligible non-citizen can cover a variety of people. It's usually a permanent U.S. resident who has a permanent resident card. So if they're not a citizen but have a permanent resident card, they're eligible. Or they have information from the immigration services showing that they're designated as a refugee, or asylum has been granted, or a conditional entrant, or someone that's been a victim of human trafficking. Those are typically ways that would make someone eligible if they're not a U.S. citizen. They must also have a valid Social Security number. And at one point, there was a requirement that males in the ages of 18 to 25 had to register with Selective Service, but this is no longer a requirement for federal student aid. This was a recent change that the federal government made. Additionally, those students that had been convicted of certain drug offenses used to be made non-eligible for federal student loans. That no longer applies as well. You also have to be enrolled at least half-time and accepted into a degree program. It's important to note that schools may have different criteria as far as what they consider half-time enrollment, so you'll have to consult with the school where the student is attending. Additionally, once a student has obtained eligibility, they must continue to maintain that basic eligibility criteria as well as maintain satisfactory academic progress as determined by their college. And usually they have to, be progressing towards their degree. So if they're failing classes, it could make them ineligible for continued financial aid. So that's another incentive for students to do well, especially if they don't have another way to pay for college. Okay, moving on, there are several types of federal student loans that we'll talk about. First of all, the U.S. Department of Education's current federal student loan program is called the William D. Ford Federal Direct Loan Program, or direct loans for short. Under this program, the U.S. Department of Education is the lender, even though they hire private companies to actually service the loan. The Department of Education is the legal lender. There are 4 types of direct loans available. All have fixed interest rates for the life of the loan, and the interest rate is determined when the loan is dispersed. Whatever the interest rate is on those loans as determined by Congress at the time that loan disperses is the interest rate that stays on that loan for the life of the loan. There are direct subsidized loans first, and direct subsidized loans are made to eligible undergraduate students who demonstrate some measure of financial need. And again, that's determined by information in the FAFSA. Direct subsidized loans have slightly better terms to help students that have financial need. Interest does not accrue while the student is in school and enrolled at least a half-time basis. It does not accrue during the grace periods that we'll talk about here in a moment, and they do not accrue during certain approved deferments, like deferment for military service and that type of thing. So the loan is not growing when those conditions are made. Also, the subsidized loans have a slightly lower interest rate than the unsubsidized loan. The thinking there is that because there is a demonstrated financial need, that student needs a little more assistance, needs a little more, a bit of favorable terms. And that's the whole concept around direct subsidized loans. Not everyone will be eligible for subsidized loans, but many students are. Now, direct unsubsidized loans are available for most students. You don't have to have a demonstrated financial need determined by the FAFSA. There are some limits on the amounts that you're eligible to borrow, and the interest does accrue on these loans while the student is in school or in deferment, or while the loans are in a grace period. It's important to note, though, that right now, because the federal government imposed the COVID-19 forbearance, no federal loans are accruing interest at all right now. But once that forbearance goes away and it's no longer the case, then what I'm sharing here will apply. But right now, everybody's getting a break that has federal student loans because of the COVID-19 emergency. And that's been going on now about 3 years. But typically, the borrower is responsible for paying the interest while they're in school in grace or deferment. And those loans grow faster and ultimately cost more to borrow because that interest is starting very early in the process, and it continues to accrue until it's paid off. Then we have direct plus loans. Now, plus loans are made to graduate or professional students or parents of dependent undergraduate students to help pay for education expenses not covered by other financial aid. Eligibility is not based on financial need, but with plus loans, there is a credit check that is required. And it's essentially just to ensure that the person is not currently delinquent on any credit obligations.
Barry, we do have a question.
Sure.
And the question is, does this include Parent Plus loans?
Yes, it does include Parent Plus loans. Parent Plus loans are loans that are taken out by a parent to pay for education of the student. Parent Plus loans are the responsibility of the parent when it comes to repayment. So if a parent takes out a Parent Plus loan for their child, the child is not obligated to repay those loans. The parent is. And we have seen, our agencies have seen some confusion that parents have sometime about Parent Plus loans. Some of them thought that when they were taking the loans out, it was more of a co-signing type arrangement and that the student was also responsible. That's not the case at all with Parent Plus loans. The parent is solely responsible for repaying those loans. So a word to the wise, all you parents out there that are considering Parent Plus loans, really give it some thought, understand that this is going to be your obligation, not the child's, and think wisely about that decision.
Barry, we have a comment. Let's see. Barry, my family was fortunate enough that my parents had set aside $50,000 for each of my daughters. They both went to community college, and then my first daughter went to a private school, which I took out a $12,000 federal Parent Plus loan. That would be nice if the $10,000 forgiveness passes, then my daughter will pay out the rest. If Biden's forgiveness doesn't pass, I work for a nonprofit and I will pursue PSLF, and my second daughter, after community college, went to a state school. So we paid cash. I totally agree. That's all in cash, by the way. I love how you both said, create a project for them and target for them. Make sure they have skin in the game. I wish I had made sure they had skin in the game. Thank you, Todd. One thing I also want to ask people to consider when you're thinking about the Parent Plus loan, think about where you are relative to retirement, because people get caught up in the emotion of, well, I don't want my baby to have all this debt on them. I don't have that. You can finance a college education. You cannot finance your retirement. So the opportunity cost of you paying toward their college education means you have to delay, defray, or whatever your retirement because you've got fewer years to work than they do. Yeah, it's something to consider.
Important words to the wise there, Herman. In the area of Parent Plus loans, I've heard of situations where a parent is taking out Parent Plus loan with the understanding from the child, the student, that they would help pay the loan back. And then once the child graduated, they didn't help at all. So understanding that as a parent with a Parent Plus loan, you're legally responsible. The child is not, regardless of what they may promise to do. Things happen, situations change. So, just be cautious there.
And you don't want a situation like this, like in that scenario, to create a rift in the family. Although I would open up a can of whoop something and we'd address that right quick. Here's another thing. For those of you who are in the DC area or you listen to a particular station, there was a DJ, Donnie Simpson. He used to be on Midnight Love, the Green-Eyed Monster. He cited a statistic and he said, there is a huge population of individuals who have paid on their student loans for 20 years. never been late,
Yeah.
never missed a payment. And after that 20 years, they still owe 96% of the balance they had from 20 years ago. So really understand the type of loan, how the interest is calculated, and what it's going to take at what payment to truly pay off that loan, because you might be making a lifelong commitment. And just because you sign up for a college loan doesn't mean you're going to necessarily get that college degree. And the worst case scenario is you get the loan, not the degree. So now you got the debt.
Yeah, good point, Herman. And you know, oftentimes what happens is, you know, because student loans are so easy sometimes to, you know, request a forbearance and, you know, not pay for a year or two or what have you. Interest continues to accrue, and, you know, student loans, people may decide to request the forbearance just because paying it back is inconvenient. They'd rather do something else with the money. We always recommend pay as much as you can, pay those loans off as quick as you can, be diligent about it, because to Herman's point, there's so many people that have been paying for years and years and years and have seen very little progress because of the way that interest accrues. So
Barry, we got a question and we got a great comment. The question is, if the parent dies in that scenario, is the loan the responsibility of the child? I think not. But
no, if the parent passes away, then that loan should be eligible for the deceased. Basically, if the loan is forgiven.
Forgiven. All right. So that's one. Then we said the comment is, Corey, you are being bashful. We should also explain this to grandparents. Many grandparents are in debt because they tried to assist their grandchildren, and they're willing to sign on a loan, not really realizing the implications of that commitment.
Yeah, that does happen, and a lot of times with private student loans too. And private student loans aren't nearly as flexible as federal student loans. Yeah, so grandparents, those that may be already retired, could be on fixed income, they're burdened with these loans that they've co-signed for, and that's really tragic. Good questions. The last type of loan here that we haven't addressed is the direct consolidation loan, and essentially a direct consolidation loan, again, is another type of federal direct loan, and it allows a borrower to combine all of their eligible federal student loans, because they may have multiple, into a single loan with a single loan servicer and one monthly payment. So it makes it easier for the borrower to manage the loan, because it's no longer separate loans with separate terms, with separate services, with separate due dates. It combines into one, and depending on the amount of that consolidation loan, they may be able to spread the payments out really as long as like 30 years, depending on the balance. Although when I think about paying for a student loan for 30 years, I cringe. That's a long time. It really is. But if you consolidate a loan and the balance is, I believe, 60,000 or more, they can spread it out to up to 30 years. Gonna pay a lot of interest, but it's an option. Okay. All right, let's talk about repayment then. When the federal student loan is first dispersed, a servicer is assigned to the loan. Now, the federal government's made some changes with the servicers. There's some that got out of the business, and a few new entities were added. Right now, there are about 7 federal loan servicers, and they include names such as Great Lakes Educational Loan Services, Ed Financial, MOHELA, which is the Missouri Higher Education Loan Authority. Aid Vantage is another one, AID Vantage. NailNet is another one, OSLA Servicing, and ECSI. So those are federal loan servicers. They are hired by the federal government, They are private companies, and the federal government hires them to be your point of contact for your student loan. So they're supposed to provide all communications regarding your student loan. They do all the billing for your student loan. They accept all the payments. They're supposed to provide customer service, answer questions that you might have, help you to apply for forbearance and forgiveness programs. They are the face of the federal direct loan program. So it's important that the servicer have your correct information so that they can get in touch with you. It's important that you reach out to them on all matters regarding your student loan. If you need help, you need questions, you are facing some sort of financial difficulty that you believe may impact your ability to pay, the servicer should be your contact in order to help you. So you want to make sure you keep your payments up to date. In reference to the grace period, the 120-day grace period, loans, the first payment on most federal student loans are due 120 days after the student either drops below half-time enrollment, or they graduate, or they drop out of school. So we recommend that students prepare for repayment well before that they're looking at that first payment being due. Understand how you're going to make that payment, how it's going to fit in your budget. Have a plan for attacking that student loan before your first payment is due. And if you realize that, hey, I'm going to have really some challenges trying to pay this loan, reach out to that servicer right away. Explain what your situation is, see what options are available, and then act accordingly. Now, I mentioned that no payments are due while you're in that grace period. We recommend that if you're in a position to pay the student loan, even if it's in a grace period, start making payments as soon as you're able to, because again, that's going to help you pay the loan off quicker. It's going to save you money in interest payments over the life of the loan. So those are important things to consider. Again, once you graduate, drop below half-time enrollment, or leave school, your federal student loan goes into repayment. We can't stress enough, again, develop a plan in advance of repayment to ensure that you are on track on your loan, on time, and get that loan paid in full. Okay. I might add before we move into talking about the standard repayment plan, which is one of the many repayment plans the federal government has, that with private student loans, typically you don't have a 120-day grace period. In some cases with private student loans, the first payment is due as soon as that loan is dispersed to your school. Some have much shorter grace periods than 120 days. So know that with private student loans, it's somewhat different when it comes to repayment and when those payments are due. Now, standard repayment. There are numerous repayment options available to repay federal student loans, and we're going to touch on some of those tonight. Choosing the right repayment plan is a personal decision based on the borrower's own situation and their goals. The Department of Education has a tool on studentaid.gov website. It's called a loan simulator, and it can help you make decisions about your student loans. The tool will guide your decisions based on how you answer specific questions that it presents to you. And so, if your goals are, to pay the loan off quicker, or, you think your income is going to start small and grow over time, it may make recommendations based on that. But it's a useful tool, and it'll help you to find a repayment plan that meets your needs and your goals. Borrowers who are in repayment on their federal student loans are allowed to change their repayment plan as their situation dictates. You can change your repayment plan whenever you want. So if you start out on a payment plan that is spreading the loan out over a longer period of time, but you are able to get a brand new job with much higher pay, you want to pay it off quicker, you can change to the standard repayment plan, which is the payment plan that will pay your loan off the quickest. It's a 10-year plan. It'll pay that loan off in 10 years, which is the quickest. When a borrower is assigned a servicer and their loan goes into the repayment, if the borrower does not choose a different repayment plan, the federal government puts them automatically into that standard repayment plan, which is the shorter of all repayment plans designed to pay off in 10 years. So you have options. If you don't choose a different option, you're going to go into the standard repayment plan. You can change it if you have to. There's also Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program, PSLF. Someone mentioned that earlier today, and that's a program that the federal government created for those that are willing to work in certain public service field jobs. It could be, government jobs, working for a nonprofit, and those loans provide forgiveness after 120 qualifying payments are made, and so that's 10 years as well. So usually the strategy is, if someone is seeking public service loan forgiveness, then it would probably be wise for them not to enroll in the standard repayment plan, because what public service loan forgiveness does, it forgives whatever the balance is on that loan after that borrower has made 120 payments. So you would be wise to enroll in a payment plan with the smallest monthly payment, because whatever's left after 10 years, it's going to be forgiven anyway. So we'll talk more about that later, but there's some strategy involved there.
Barry, we do have a question.
Yes.
And does this include the Parent Plus loans? If the parent dies, is the loan the responsibility of the children? Yes. Okay. I'm sorry. That must have been, that was an old question, I think. All right. Never mind.
Yep. Yeah. So Parent Plus loans, if the parent dies, the child is not responsible.
The question is, Alex is asking, will we be getting a copy of this presentation?
Absolutely. We'll make it available at the conclusion of today's webinar.
And anybody who's interested can email me your email address, and we'll make sure you get it.
Awesome.
And you'll get my email at the end. So
thanks, Herman. Okay, so I did want to mention that the Biden administration, in addition to the loan forgiveness proposal, is also proposing changes to the federal student loan repayment. And these are changes to regulation that will cut the monthly payment for undergraduate students in half and create faster pathways for forgiveness. So borrowers can better manage repayment, avoid delinquency and default, and focus on, building families, buying homes, that type of thing. More than 8 million borrowers will benefit from the new student loan repayment plan if it actually goes through. I know they're in the rulemaking process right now. There could be some legal challenges to that as well. So all of this bears watching. I'd recommend that folks kind of pay attention to what's happening. But there have been a number of legal challenges that have been filed by certain Republican lawmakers and conservative activists that don't believe in this concept. So they're trying to stop it. It's going to court, and nobody really knows how it's going to turn out. So just bear some watching, that's all. There are also graduated repayment plans that start off small and then the payment amounts increase over time. There are extended payment plans that can extend it out over a longer period of time. There are pay-as-you-earn plans that base the payment on the borrower's income. Pay-as-you-earn and income-based are similar in some ways, and we're going to look at each type here in just a moment that fall under these broad categories. Okay. So the standard repayment plan, as we mentioned, all borrowers are eligible for the standard repayment plan. They're fixed monthly payments, and it's designed to pay off in 10 to 30 years. The basic standard repayment plan is a 10-year repayment plan, but depending on the balance, it could be as long as 30. If a borrower does not choose the repayment plan, then the Department of Education will put them into the standard repayment plan. Again, a borrower can change the payment plan whenever they want. The standard repayment plan is the shortest repayment plan, and the borrower would pay less over the life of the loan than any other repayment plan. So it would make sense that if a borrower can afford to make the payment under the standard payment plan after graduation, they should stay on that standard repayment plan. That's the quickest way to getting the loan paid off, if they can afford it. And they pay, less over the life of the loan. However, if a borrower is seeking public student loan forgiveness, the standard repayment plan is not a good choice because there'll be nothing left after those 120 payments to be forgiven. So we recommend in those situations that a borrower enters one of the income-driven repayment plans, pay as little as they can, as long as they stay on track to earning that public student loan forgiveness. Whatever the balance is after that 120 payments will be forgiven by the federal government. Okay. The eligible loans for the standard repayment plan are both the direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans. There's something called Stafford loans, subsidized and unsubsidized. All plus loans and all consolidation loans are eligible for standard repayment plan. Again, pay less over time, but not a good option for public service loan forgiveness. Public service loan forgiveness, we talked a little bit about this. It's the federal loan forgiveness program that's currently available for those that work in public service. The program forgives the remaining balances on direct loans after borrower has made 120 qualifying monthly payments under a qualifying repayment plan. Typically, they have to be enrolled in income-driven plans that we'll talk about in a moment. While the borrower is working full-time in public service. And usually this is either working for the U.S. Federal government, state government, local governments, travel governments, those on travel lands, and nonprofit 501c3 organizations. They have to be considered full-time employees of those organizations. They have to have direct loans or consolidate one of the older loan programs into a direct loan to be eligible for public service loan forgiveness. They have to repay the loans under the income-driven plan and make the 120 qualifying payment. Now, here's the deal. Let's say someone's in an income-driven plan and they are unemployed. Income-driven plans are based on the borrower's current income. So on an annual basis, they have to certify their income with the servicer. If they're unemployed and have no income coming in, their qualified monthly payment could be zero. And so they would be actually earning credit towards public service loan forgiveness. That zero payment in that situation would count towards that 120 qualifying payment. That's why it's important to enroll in income-driven plans if you're pursuing public service loan forgiveness. So you could actually gain eligibility, earn eligibility towards public service loan forgiveness because your eligible payment is zero based on your income at that time. Something to think about, isn't it? But that's the way it works. Public service loan forgiveness, again, you got to be employed full-time by government or nonprofit, got to be on a direct loan program, and be enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan. Once you make 120 payments, you apply for forgiveness and the loan is forgiven.
Barry, I just want you to understand.
Yep.
There were several wows from that last point you made. I just couldn't, my mouse was hiding from me. I just couldn't get it quick enough, but you got several wows behind that one. Okay.
Now, granted, there's some limits to that. I don't think somebody's going to be unemployed for 10 straight years, but the fact that you could earn credit towards that forgiveness and making zero payment, it's a good option. But again, it's designed to encourage people to work in public service, which I think is a noble thing. So that comes with the program. All right, graduated repayment plan. It's also a 10-year repayment plan. However, it's designed to start with the lower payment at first and increase every 2 years in order to pay that loan off in 10 years. So this is good for, again, someone that's newly graduating from college. They're just starting off in a career and they expect their earnings to grow over time. You can start off with a lower payment that may be affordable for you, knowing that that payment's going to increase every 2 years so that it's paid off in 10 years. This is also not a good option for those pursuing public service loan forgiveness because, again, nothing would be left to forgive under the public service loan forgiveness program if it's already going to be paid off in 10 years.
So we got a comment. I've seen junior service members whose payment was zero for the income-driven plan.
That's correct. That's correct, just based on their income, because again, they have to provide their income to their servicer, and based on that calculation, they could have a zero required monthly payment, and their loan considered, in good standing. Yep, so that's true. All right, so graduated repayment plan, everyone's eligible for that. Direct loans and consolidation loans. Designed to pay off in 10 years, not good for public service loan forgiveness. Okay, then we have extended repayment plans. This is only available for those that have loan balances that are greater than $30,000. Payments could be fixed or graduated and are designed to pay off within 25 years. All direct loans are eligible. Payments are lower than what they would be on the 10-year plan or the graduated repayment plan. However, you pay more in interest over the life of loan than the standard plan. This plan does not qualify for public service loan forgiveness because it's not considered one of the income-driven plans. So doesn't qualify under public service loan forgiveness. But think about it. If you're in one of the income-driven plans, the loan's going to be paid off a lot sooner than the 25 years that the extended plan would be paid off in. Okay, then we have the revised pay as you earn. This is the newest federal repayment plan. It was first introduced in 2015, and it was called the revised pay-as-you-earn plan because there was another pay-as-you-earn plan that worked a little differently. This repayment plan is available to borrowers with any direct federal loan. Payments calculated are based on 10% of the borrower's discretionary income, and there's a formula that the federal government uses to determine discretionary income. Payments are evaluated each year and could change based on whether your income changes. So you have to verify your income every year, send in your, pay stubs, income verification every year. If you don't, they will take you off any of the income-driven plans if you don't verify your income. And typically they send reminders, but if it was me, I'd stay on top of it and wouldn't rely on the federal government. I'd be sure to I'd mark my calendar and be sure to send that information in. This is a good option for those seeking public service loan forgiveness. For those not pursuing public service loan forgiveness, in this plan, the balance would be forgiven after 20 or 25 years, depending on when you first received your loan. So there is some forgiveness involved also with revised pay as you earn, even if you're not working in public service loan forgiveness. 20 or 25 years would be the length of time that you have to pay. Any balances after that would be forgiven. With this plan, though, forgiveness under this plan would be subject to income tax on the amount that's forgiven. Under the public service loan forgiveness, the amount that is forgiven is not subject to income tax. So that's another advantage of public service loan forgiveness if you're eligible for it.
So Barry, you raised the issue of income tax treatment. I have a question. So let's say there's a forward-thinking member of the family who has created as part of their estate planning an allotment for a member of the family that has student loan. If they give them $15,000, $20,000 to pay off their student loan, the loan gets paid off, but is there also a tax implication because that's money that they got from outside? Is that treated as income?
It's a gift.
Yep. Okay.
It would seem to me that would be a gift.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
But I'm not a tax attorney. So
Yep. So note to self, anybody listening, one, consider your estate plan, and maybe for your children, your grandchildren, nieces and nephews, that might be an option, but consult a tax attorney or a tax planner to see what the implications are of taking that particular strategy.
Yep. No. Good question. Now, I'll add here, the Biden administration is proposing, new repayment plans. Their proposal would overhaul this revised pay-as-you-earn plan, essentially replacing the existing version of the plan with a new one that reduces the minimum monthly payment for some borrowers and the amount of time before the remaining balances would be forgiven. So it's designed to be more advantageous for the borrower, and instead of the 20 to 25 years forgiveness on their plan, it's more like 10 years. And then the way the monthly payment is calculated, it's the monthly payment would be less. So if this one passes, if this one becomes law, this probably has the potential to being an even better situation than the 10 or 20,000 loan forgiveness for those that have federal student loans and qualify under the revised pay as you earn. Because 10 years, the balance is gone and the amount that you're required to pay is less every month. So that's substantial savings if this one becomes law. So keep an eye on this one. Again, I think this is bigger than the 10 or 20,000 forgiveness for many borrowers. Okay, then we have, this is an older plan, an income-based repayment plan. It also bases the student loan payment on income. Eligible borrowers are those that have high debt relative to their income. The repayment amount is 10 or 15% of their income. It does require annual certification of income. This one will also forgive the balance in 20 or 25 years. There could be some tax consequences on the forgiven amount. It applies to all direct loans and direct consolidation loans. The monthly payment is never greater than the 10-year standard plan. You will pay more over time than the 10-year standard plan. This is a good option for public service loan forgiveness for some borrowers too. Again, when it comes to choosing the right plan, again, the federal government has a great tool on studentaid.gov. It's the loan simulator. You put in the information. It basically tells you, it allows you to compare the various options. So that's a good tool, again, that I recommend. Because of the complexities involved in this and the fact that there's so many different repayment plans, that tool is great. You can also talk to a nonprofit credit counselor that can sort of help guide you through it as well. Income contingent plan. This is the oldest of the income-driven plans. I think it was created during like George W. Bush's administration. Any eligible direct loan for direct subsidized, unsubsidized, plus loans, direct consolidation loans. The monthly payment is 20% or 10-year fixed based on income. It's recalculated annually, so income has to be verified on an annual basis. The remaining loan amount, the balance of the loans forgiven after 25 years. You would pay more over time with this plan. There are some tax implications for the amount forgiven. This could be an option for someone that's on public service loan forgiveness as well. But this is the oldest of the plan that are tied to income. All right, just some general repayment best practices I wanted to cover. Again, and I can't stress this enough. Plan before you graduate. You know, obviously, if someone already has the loans, there's not a whole lot of planning they can do now, but there are some strategies that they can take to help eliminate that debt. But if you have someone that has not yet gone to college or they haven't graduated yet, starting to think about how they're going to pay any loans back that they happen to take out, and avoid loans in general if you can. We always say pay as much as you can afford to pay as soon as you can. Again, that's going to cut in interest that accrues over the life of the loan. Use the Department of Education's repayment simulator. Studentaid.gov is that site. Evaluate and adjust your plan as your situation changes. You know, if your income increases, consider paying more towards your loans. If you go into public service, consider whether or not you want to pursue public service loan forgiveness and determine how that would impact your repayment strategy. And then seek assistance from your servicer if you experience repayment difficulty. You could also reach out to a nonprofit credit counselor, such as those from the National Foundation for Credit Counseling. They will help you develop a strategy that aligns with your own personal goals and objectives. What you want to avoid is student loan delinquency. And we'll talk a little bit about delinquency and default. So federal student loans are considered delinquent when a borrower doesn't make a payment by a specified due date. Most federal student loans move into a default, which is really serious, when a borrower doesn't make any payments for more than 270 days. So that's 9 months. So you've got to be 9 months behind before a loan goes into default. You want to avoid a loan going into default. Reach out to the servicer, see what can be done. Talk to a credit counselor, see what can be done. You don't want to move from delinquency to default. Now, if you're delinquent, you will get notices from your servicer telling you your loan is delinquent. Typically, no further action will be taken unless you move into that default stage. Now, these terms and conditions are spelled out in the promissory note for the student loan. So when you first took out the student loan, you were provided with the promissory note. If you don't have that promissory note, you want to read it over. It's important information that's in it because it tells you exactly how that loan is treated and what happens if you default on the loan. If you don't have a copy, you can get a copy from your loan servicer. So reach out to the loan servicer. But we always recommend just become familiar with what's in that document. Because again, it spells out the terms and conditions of the loan. When a loan moves into default, the entire balance of the loan becomes due immediately. The federal government has extraordinary powers that they can utilize to collect on that student loan. And this includes garnishment of wages, Social Security offset. They can offset up to 15% of your Social Security benefits. They can withhold your income tax refunds, federal or state. So they're going to get their money if that loan goes into default. Before they start, with taking Social Security and income tax returns, they'll send a notice of intent to offset. It'll be sent to your last known address, and that's designed to inform you that it's scheduled, that those benefits are going to be offset in 65 days. The notice may only be sent once, and offsets will continue until your debt is paid or the default status is resolved. Now, you can avoid the offset by entering into a repayment agreement with your loan servicer, by making your first payment during the 65-day period, and then making your payments each month after that. You do have a right to request a review of your account to prevent the offset from occurring. If you're successful, your tax refund and other federal payments will not be offset, and the amount being offset may be reduced. If you're unsuccessful, however, then your tax refund and other federal payments will be offset. I want to stress, though, that default is not the end of the world. As a matter of fact, the Department of Education has options for getting loans out of default. They have a special group called the Default Resolution Group. They provide options for getting the federal student loans out of default. So it's important to reach out to them. If you have a loan that's in default, reach out to them as soon as that loan goes in default. They can tell you what you can do to get that loan out of default. I have put the phone number in the slide here. Feel free to share it with anyone that might need it. I'll also mention that there are private companies, predatory companies out here that will reach out to you to tell you they can help get your loans out of default. And essentially, they can't do anything that you can't do for yourself. And these companies charge, very high fees for assistance. I had a family member of my wife had a loan that was in default, and he was paying one of those companies, and we found out about it, and we had him come over, and I was like, look, this is what you need to do. Call this default resolution group. They can take care of this for you. You don't have to pay that company any more money. And he did it, and it worked out for him. So just know that Again, default's not the end of the world. Don't pay companies high fees in order to get a loan out of default, and utilize that default default resolution group, because they do have options to help get your federal loans out of default should that happen. Hopefully that won't happen to anyone that's on our call here today, but I thought it was important to mention that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over now to Herman, who will share some resources, including our calendar of upcoming future NFCC faith-based events. We'll also have an opportunity for additional questions if you might have those questions, but I'll turn it over to Herman right now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Barry. Thank you so much. I think it was a wonderful presentation, and you said default is not the end of the world, but it ain't the beginning either.
No, it's not.
I'm traumatized, and I don't have a student loan. So you're saying they can come after your Social Security? That's a lot. So
yeah, it's serious. Yes.
One thing I want to stress is, if you know somebody or you yourself in that situation, please reach out to a certified nonprofit counselor to help you if you don't want to contact the servicer on your own. It can be intimidating. You're not the subject matter expert, but that nonprofit counselor is basically your consultant to help you navigate that.
They're your advocate.
Process.
Yep.
There you go. Your advocate. I like that word, advocate. Okay. All right. Barry, can you give me the next slide? Because you have control of the deck.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you. So as I said, this is the part of the of our series, of our faith-based alliance series. What you've just heard is the number on 413 student loans. We've already had 2 wheels in estate planning, and they went incredibly well. We had tax prep. Next up, we're going to be going through the foreclosure and eviction prevention program. That's going to take place on May 11th. Rulon Washington of Wells Fargo is going to be leading that. We've had him last year. People loved the information. It's a difficult subject, but because of the insights that's offered, it's much appreciated and invaluable. After that, on June 8th, we're going to have an insurance overview provided by Eugene Mitchell. Some of you may know a lot about insurance. I don't. And I keep hearing these different terms about term, about universal variable, about whole, and I hear all these things. I just want to hear from the subject matter expert. What's the best program for me? What are the requirements? What are the benefits? So I can make the informed decision. Sometimes you hear, well, insurance is an investment vehicle. Guess what? If you want to invest, pick an investment. If you want insurance, just do insurance. But we're going to hear from the subject matter expert again, so we can create better financial outcomes. And then you see the rest that's coming after that. But really, foreclosure and eviction prevention, if you know anybody, or if they know anybody, please spread the word on that one, because it's timely. We picked this time frame in particular to have this session because we knew with the forbearance ending and all those programs, those relief programs ending, the call volume is starting to tick up and people are getting concerned. We want to give them options so they can be proactive versus reactive. All right, Barry, next slide, please.
Yes, sir.
All right, so now, as you've seen and you heard about the our alliance, you might know your organization yourself. You might be interested in joining. You might know of an organization that might be interested in joining us in this endeavor. It doesn't just have to be a church, mosque, temple, or what have you. It could be a strategic partner that engages with the community, that goes out and tries to do good work to help people create better financial outcomes. This is what we're interested in providing. We ourselves provide information about a number of subjects, but if you have an agency or an organization in mind, please send us your name, email, cell phone number, the organization's name, and their address. You can send it to my attention. This is my email address. So hpalmer@nfcc.org. So send me any references you have to be a part of this program. If you yourself are interested in getting this presentation, send me your email and I will make sure it's emailed to you. You don't like me? I'm devastated, but you can send it to Pam Carter. Her information is there. The key thing is that we spread the word and we get the resources out so that people can take advantage of them. You saw the calendar. We've got a number of different topics that we're going to be talking about. You may not be interested in all of them, but there may be one or two of them. Please feel free to join. And again, spread the word. Next slide, please, Barry. All right. So now, if you know somebody who's interested in receiving confidential counseling, this is where you can get it. This is the telephone number. This is the link. These are the counseling options that are available to you. It'll be provided by NFCC member agencies. I hear a lot of people talk about counseling. I don't know. Let me break it down for you like this. If your engine is making a funky sound and it's going, are you going to take it to a mechanic? I think so. If your toothache is aching you, are you going to just deal with that, get a pair of pliers and pull it yourself, or are you going to go to a dentist? I think you're going to go to a dentist. If you have a legal issue, are you going to take your chances going to court if you're not an attorney, or are you going to get the subject matter expert to advocate for you? I share these examples because what you do when you have a need, you tap into the subject matter expert. That's all this is, not different. Organizations do it. They do it when Google, when all these organizations have challenges or they want to evaluate an opportunity, they get subject matter experts. It's just called consulting. Counseling, consulting. Consulting for them, counseling for you. Please get the help that you want, that you need. All right, next slide, please. All right, so we're not the only ones that provide help. We've got partners in this. There's other entities out there that are subject matters in different fields. These are the links that we make available. You see us at the top. Of course, I had to do that because it's my organization. But you got Freddie Mac, our partners are involved. You got Diversified Resource involved. We got HUD, Federal Trade Commission. You can get your credit report to see what your situation is right there. Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They have a host of resources. The key thing is, this is a representation of what we're here to do, to get you the information to make informed decisions to create better financial outcomes. And again, when you receive this, you'll get it and you'll have access to it. Next slide, please. Resources. We're not playing with your ticket money. We're giving you access to all the resources you need. And we're going to be adding more all the time. We've got a toolkit that goes out, that sends out links to previous presentations, that also connects to some of the advertisements that we're going to use, that we have used. So, please reach out to us. Next slide, Barry. And this is some of the platforms that we're available on using social media. You'll get that. Next slide, please, Barry. Questions. Any questions you might have? We got something here. Bankruptcy adversary proceedings for student loans has recently, I guess that's been amended. The DOJ has stepped in to oversee the proceeding, and attestation forms submitted to the courts have been updated. This may create a streamlined approach in evaluating the three prongs of the Brunner's test that is used to evaluate if the student loan is eligible for discharge. It will be interesting to see how this new process will play out in the future. Hopefully, it will result in more successful discharge cases for people struggling with federal student loans. I like that, Anonymous.
That is wonderful. That's wonderful. The Brunner test is the one that determines whether or not there is undue hardship, and that's the standard that has been difficult to meet for those to be able to get their student loans discharged in bankruptcy. So it's great to hear that the Department of Justice is making this, it's working to make some changes there. So really excited to hear how that might impact folks who are facing bankruptcy but also have student debt.
Awesome. Good news. Wonderful. Thank you again for sharing. All right, questions going once. Once again, I want to thank Barry for his insight. I want to thank the presentation that was made. I think it was very helpful. I want to thank our funders from funding support that we received. And that funding support was provided by Freddie Mac, the Wells Fargo Foundation, and TD Bank. All right, questions going twice. In closing, I want to thank Barry, our director and producer, Eric Brandt, who makes us look so good. My colleague, we got Cora Fulmore, our absent colleagues who are out there making things great for people, Latanya Gonzalez of Freddie Mac, Pastor Cedric Jones of Mount Zion Baptist Church in Philadelphia, and Associate Pastor Kevin Murphy from Enon Tabernacle in Philadelphia. I want to thank them. And again, I want to thank you all for hanging in there with us, staying with us, getting this information. I really appreciate you. Look for us next month on the 11th, where we will be talking about foreclosure and eviction prevention. And that's it. Oh, Cora, wait, I'm sorry. I'm just oh, Brother Kevin, Kevin's here.
He's here. Yeah.
All right, there we go. I'm gonna let them talk. Go ahead.
Awesome.
Just Corey, you want to go? You want me to go first?
Yeah, please.
Okay. My name is Reverend Kevin Murphy, and I serve as Associate Pastor of Illumination at Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And Illumination is simply a big word for Christian education and training. Certainly want to start by thanking Barry for a wonderful presentation on tonight, and as well as to thank Herman for leading us on tonight and all of the information that he shared as well. I count it certainly an honor for me to be a part of this team, a part of this alliance with Pastor Cedric Jones, with, of course, Sister Cora Fulmore, another one of our tremendous presenters, Sister Latanya Gonzalez, as well as Pam Carter. And I just encourage everyone tonight, whenever you see an advertisement for one of these presentations, not only tune in, but let everyone in your family, all of your friends know, post it on all of your social media, invite everybody you can, because you cannot receive this type of vetted financial information anywhere in the world better than the presenters that we have. And I really encourage all of you to invite everybody you know to be a part of this, because the more literate we are financially, the better prepared we are to function as a productive citizen, parent, whatever it might be in this country. So thank you again for being here. Thank you, Barry, again for a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Herman, for leading us. And I apologize for my tardiness, but I did make it in time to learn a lot. God bless you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Barry. I echo everything that Brother Kevin has shared with us. This has been a great session, and I can't thank you enough. I've got some other questions, but I'm going to let it slide, and I'll talk to you later.
Absolutely, yes.
Those questions, because you mentioned a lot of great things, and hopefully all of you have taken great notes, and you'll be able to share it with those that are near and dear to you. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you again on another session similar to this. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, giving us time. Barry, you want to say something?
No, I just thank you all for attending tonight, and we're glad to do it. And again, reach out to us if we can be of service to you.
Thank you. Everybody have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
And definitely make some informed choices as it relates to student loans.
Yes. Thank you.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night.